Hi again, everybody. Bill Phillips, and it is off to the races. We are getting ready for a huge weekend in West Virginia because it's West Virginia Derby time at Mountaineer, and we have Mountaineer race analyst Mark Patterson with us once again, and he knows the ins and outs of the field, the ins and outs of the Derby weekend, what the big races are, what you can do, how you can spend your money in the right spots, maybe make a wager or two that you can take home a few dineros, if you know what I'm saying. So we're going to talk about all of that, talk about the field, talk about the event. Mark, I would imagine for everybody at Mountaineer, it's like Christmas week.
I think you gave me too much of a build-up, man, but it is definitely
Never.
Derby week.
I can't build you up enough.
No, it's definitely Derby week. It's definitely that time of year. And you can tell even by driving down the highways, the surrounding Ohio Valley, because I saw a bumper sticker literally yesterday that said, "Talk Derby to me." And you know what? I don't need too much encouragement to do that. I would have, but I couldn't catch the car. It was a sports car. I would have. I really would have. I'm yelling out the window. My own bumper sticker, by the way, should say, "Honk twice if you like Dragoon Guard," who I have installed as a morning line favorite in the big one, just to jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah, Dragoon Guard comes in on a 3-race winning streak. Last win, the Indiana Derby back in early July. And there's a good look at the gray Dragoon Guard, and just a fine looking horse, and a horse that has been red hot right now. But before we get more into him, let's talk a little bit about this event. It's a special Sunday event. It not only has the Derby, but also the Governor's Stakes. Take me through this. You have 2 Grade 3 races this weekend, a 9-field race with the West Virginia Derby, 8 horses in the Governor's Stakes. It's just a big weekend. There's a couple great races in a card that's solid.
Yeah, before we get into the 2 big ones, our 2 graded stakes races, just kind of an overview, Bill. We have reimagined our whole West Virginia Derby Day concept with a mind towards fuller fields, which the fans want to see. More betting options, just more appeal when you bet your $2 and you go to the windows. And consequently, we have jettisoned some of the stale stakes that just seem to foster short fields because there's so many competing races around the nation for those kind of horses. So we've kind of retooled and written the kind of races for our undercard that result in high-class fields, but also fuller fields, more horses. And with a mind to that, we've got 3 turf races carded to kick off the festivities, the first 3 races on the program. And they are not only great spectacles because those are horses at play, thoroughbreds frolicking on their natural footing, so to speak. And also, they're popular with trainers because they're easy on their horses. So we get full fields. We've got 2 10-horse fields with our turf races to kick off the card, and also a 9 before we even get into the good stuff later on. And the grass races are great spectacle. And so definitely the fans want to be out early enough to catch those affairs. And then, of course, later on, we get to the meat and potatoes of a West Virginia Derby card that we have reimagined in a sense. We've got the Governors as a supporting stakes, and that is an 8-horse field, which is uncommonly big for that kind of a purse. We're talking about $200,000, and it has got a nationwide flavor there. We've got horses in from New York, from Southern California, from Kentucky, from the Heartland out there in Iowa, and even a Japanese horse, a horse of Japanese lineage. And I promised that I would pronounce the name correctly when I talked to the connections there, and I've practiced it for your viewers, Bill.
Okay.
Now, I'm not auditioning for some kind of a sequel to Shogun, but I want to say this at least once, okay? We've got a horse in the Governor's Stakes, our supporting feature. And it's a really talented horse, a brilliant horse named Komore Bino Amoide. And that means memories of beautiful sunlight. Yeah, I had to Google it. I would not have known that.
That's tremendous. I'll tell you what, we need to get you to Hollywood.
No, I just want to be part of the Shogun remake. He's part of an intriguing field for the Governors, for sure.
Let me ask you this question, and this might get us off on a different track for a moment, but what a Japanese horse or Japanese lineage, what is it about Mountaineer? What is it about this weekend of races that is going to draw a horse like that to come in that many people in the Ohio Valley may not get to see unless they decide to come here? What's the draw for them, obviously they want to run in big races. They want to win big prize money. But there's got to be something extra to make them make the trip.
We worked hard to get graded status for our two big races, not just the Derby, which I assume we'll discuss at the length in a minute or two, but also for the Governors, which is a grade 3. And that is status, baby, in thoroughbred horse racing. And that enhances a thoroughbred's value for the breeding shed. And I'm not going to say the name again, but the Japanese bred horse in the Governors is a colt. So in other words, they're looking ahead to the value to sell the horse per stud. And we've got a lot of full end tires, which is kind of the snooty, classy way to say a colt or a full horse, not a gelding, not a castrated thoroughbred. And they can enhance their credentials to be sold and go to stud in the future if they can win a graded race, if they can place in a graded race. And that's good for their resumes. So that's one thing that attracts horses from all over the place. Plus, we're on the map for our big day. We're no longer a secret. We're marked down on the calendars of a lot of prominent horsemen, a lot of prominent barns and owners.
Well,
so it's not a hard sell anymore, Bill, to get somebody to come here and run in our big races.
That's good. That's fantastic. The you mentioned the turf races, starting the event, the whole racing card. I just want to make sure people know the first post time scheduled for 5:00, and then the West Virginia Derby post time scheduled for roughly 8:15.
Yeah.
But that 5:00 card, you want to be there at 5:00. You can see some great races preceding the two big graded stakes races, grade 3s. And speaking of the grade 3s, let's get into the West Virginia Derby. And we mentioned Dragoon's Guard before. Let's talk about him coming in on a hot streak. Has won 3 in a row. His last win, the Indiana Derby, back in early July. How good is this horse? Is this a horse that people are going to need, if he can win this weekend, they'll really start to pay attention to for down the road further on in the season?
You talked about the special 5:00 post, Bill. And this race this day is not just our Kentucky Derby, but it's kind of our Super Bowl, our World Series, kind of all rolled into one, our World Cup. And you're going to get the tailgaters, too, on the far turn and stuff like that. And the Derby post time, which you also touched on, 8:15 is going to be, I don't think it's going to be the gloaming or quite twilight yet. Let's just say the falling sun on a big red bull. And it could be just an iconic image when it comes to our West Virginia Derby, because I talked to Brad Cox, who was eminently approachable, a really nice guy behind the scenes. And I asked him a couple of questions last night about Dragoon Guard, his burgeoning big horse, his emerging star Dragoon Guard. And he said one distinguishing characteristic about this horse that the fans want to pay attention to is his color. He is not just the only gray in this year's West Virginia Derby, but he is of a distinct hue, a very distinct hue, is Dragoon Guard. And he should stand out starkly against the falling red ball that's going to be the sun at that time of the evening. And also in a race that has 5 red horses, 5 chestnuts. As far as Dragoon Guard's talent, Cox told me that this horse was a little slower to develop than some of his A horses, some of his superstars, but he does have grade 1 aspirations for Dragoon Guard, who he's brought along slowly. Cox is patient. He doesn't get real high or ambitious with his horses too quickly. And Dragoon Guard really was not off the sidelines early enough this year, or an early enough bloomer to get on the Kentucky Derby trail, which might be all the better, because Dragoon Guard is now 3 in a row. He is 3 out of 4 in his career, and he has gradually advanced out, stretched out in distance, which is also part of the Cox template with his really good horses. And he told me that he's got the highest aspirations for Dragoon Guard. But first he has to pass this West Virginia Derby test, Dragoon Guard.
Is he the prohibitive favorite, or do you have some other horses that are just they're right there in the mix? You're looking at horses like Dematic, maybe Society Man. Looked at those. Is he the odds on?
He is 9 to 5. I've installed him as the program odds, the morning line. That's racing terminology. Favorite at 9 to 5. There, Dragoon Guard, but it's not a walkover, baby. He's going to have to run for the money. It's a lot of money too. $500,000 there, which is 60% for the winner, roughly $300,000 there. He is one of 2 Derby winners to go to the post. He won the Indiana Derby last time, and then Henro on the outside of the field, also a Derby winner. He took the Iowa Derby, and those races have both traditionally been productive springboards to success in our own Derby, which is richer in purse money and is a step up from the races these horses have won. So no, he's not necessarily a guaranteed winner at Dragoon Guard. I'll tell you one big key to success for Dragoon Guard. His advantage, just to get down to brass tacks here, over the rest of the field, that does include 4 or 5 stakes winners, 3 graded stakes winners. So it's high quality for sure. Yep. But he is a front runner. He goes right to the top early and takes no prisoners, Dragoon Guard. And if he's able to set a comfortable pace out there, then he is a very likely winner in our West Virginia Derby. Now, a race key to watch for, the one horse Baxley, who looks cheap and who's 20-1 on the morning line and comes from Thistledown, which has a modest racing program, nonetheless has a sharp turn of early foot. Now, the behind-the-scenes rumblings, maybe Baxley's going to scratch. But if Baxley shows up, honors his commitment to run, I think he's an important role player and that he could keep the pace honest, so to speak, and make Dragoon Guard work to get the lead. If Baxley defects, and he might be voted most likely to scratch from what's a good-sized field, by the way, for our West Virginia Derby. It's almost unheard of to see 9 to the post at a $500,000 horse race, such as the suffocating competition for top 3-year-olds at all the competing stakes all across the landscape. For us to get 9, we're just overjoyed at all the moving parts and what promises to be a memorable renewal of our West Virginia Derby. But if Baxley defects, then Dragoon Guard sets the pace as the rider pleases, and it could be all Dragoon Guard. If Baxley does run and the fraction's a little more brisk, then some other high-quality horses come into play. For instance, Henro on the outside, who you probably took a look at there, our other Derby winner, who took the Iowa Derby, has only been a distance, quote-unquote, of ground one time at his entire career. And keep in mind, the West Virginia Derby is not about stale, overexposed horses that are over the top and have faded from the best form and from the spotlight maybe several weeks ago. It's about burgeoning stars that have pointed for our race as kind of the be-all, end-all of their campaigns to date. So you have a Henro who wins the Iowa Derby last time and runs a fast time in the process. And that was his only time at 2 turns there, Henro. So you can look for him late. He's actually got some tactical speed. And then I know you looked at some of the trainers, some of the upper crust, upper echelon conditioners.
Well, Steve Asmussen jumps out at me when I was looking at Dematic. And I wrote down a note here. It says likes to come from off the pace. If what you're saying with Baxley, if could Dematic, I hope I'm saying the name correctly, with the trainer who's looking for his 7th West Virginia Derby from the notes that I read, is he a horse that we can look at as a possibility to challenge Dragoon Guard if Dragoon Guard's out in front? Interestingly
enough, Dematic, I think I slated him as high as 6-1 on the program odds on the morning line, because if you're going to be really objective about it, maybe he's not a complete upper tier in this race, kind of a secondary fringe contender, a horse you necessarily want to consider. But you got to bring the trainer factor into play if you're going to bet on Dematic, because again, Steve Asmussen virtually owns this race. He has won it 6 times. He's got the formula down pat, and he's won with horses like Dematic before, who did not necessarily come in with the sexiest, quote unquote, credentials for our big one. In fact, I don't think a single one of those 6 Asmussen winners went favored in our race. So I think definitely you're onto something there. Ignore an Asmussen West Virginia Derby entrant at your own risk.
If the sharp money, where are we? I want to hit a trifecta. What am I looking at? What do you think?
I think the 2 Derby winners, so to speak, Dragoon Guard and Henry, are the horses you want to look long and hard at. Todd Pletcher also knows the formula to a lesser extent. He has won a West Virginia Derby before. A couple of years back, he did it. He's got a horse in there with some questions to answer, a Gate Road, who was one of the graded stakes winners in that race, with one important catch, and it's a biggie. A Gate Road has never won a dirt race. He's a graded stakes winner on turf, but the last time he was on dirt, it was a high-quality race, Louisiana Derby at Fairgrounds, and he suffered what is termed a troubled trip. And since he runs from behind the pace, sometimes that's an occupational hazard for his style, since he lacks early speed. But when you see Pletcher taking the time, taking the trouble to ship here and show up for the West Virginia Derby, then you better believe he merits some respect. And another horse that I would not go to sleep on, and the fans are unlikely to do this, is Society Man. Society Man is a horse that did run in the Kentucky Derby which, given the profile of past West Virginia Derby winners, has been more or less the kiss of death. Historically, it doesn't fit the profile of our West Virginia Derby winners. Remember the burgeoning stars that have avoided the rigors of the arduous Triple Crown Trail. But a past profile of any sporting event, you know this, Bill, only works until it doesn't. And all that stuff has been out the window the last couple of years with Red Route 1, who did compete in a couple of the vaunted Triple Crown races, walks in here to win our one last year, our West Virginia Derby, and the year before Skippy Longstockings, where they could also run in a couple of the classics. So you have a society man who was outclassed in the Kentucky Derby, but returned to win a graded stakes at Churchill Downs there. And his trainer, interestingly enough, is kind of new to the graded stakes scene, but has a splendid record in these kind of races. I just checked him out. He's 24% in graded stakes races. So this guy knows how to handle a really good horse. And he's got Society Man in there just 7 times to the post. And maybe the best is yet ahead for Society Man. But he does have the late style, Bill. And he might need some help up front for somebody to attack Dragoon Guard early and maybe
he needs Baxley to show up and not scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perfect, Bill.
And then just because of the name, I might throw a couple down on McQueen just because I think of Steve McQueen. Think of him driving around in the car from Bullitt, the big Mustang, and the great sound that they did in that movie with the engine. They just put the mics in and let McQueen go, and he was racing all over San Francisco. So you never know, just for fun. You
sound a little bit like a movie buff, my man, a little bit. And
I like the movies. I like the movies. Absolutely.
I'm an amateur movie buff myself, Bill. Sometimes when I've got enough hardcore racing analysis on Mountaineer's own show, then I riff a little bit and get off and review movies a little bit. And but I'm off beat, man. I'm definitely off campus. My favorite Steve McQueen movie is Tom Horn because I'm a Western guy.
Oh,
just an obscure note there. Because once you start talking movies, and you know what, my friends and family say someday when I'm older, I will talk only in movie quotes. It's almost my native language, man.
Yeah, my daughter and I were watching the television the other day, and something came on, a trailer for Jaws, and I started to do the lines and she just looked at me, and I said, "You haven't seen Jaws with me yet?" And I said, "I don't know if you want to watch it the first time with me because you'll just hear me doing the lines." But so yeah, I love the movies. McQueen, I just think of Bullitt, and then a lot of great other movies. But I want to get into a movie that can it turns into a movie. Maybe it's one of those happy ending movies, or riding off into the sunset, like you said, with the Governor's Stakes. If someone's at the races this week and they're like, okay, we've got 2 big races. What do I want to do in the Governor's Stake? Where do you point them on the Governor's Stakes?
Well, if we're going to get just a little bit more esoteric here, Bill, a key factor in the Governor's Stakes, and I don't think this will come into play in the West Virginia Derby, is Mountaineer is not under federal regulation, which a lot of horsemen and players think is not a bad thing necessarily, which means horses can come here, unlike at almost any other venue in the country, and run on Lasix, which is a bleeder medication. It's an anti-bleeder medication. Horses sometimes have burst vessels under the pressure, the stress of going out there and performing their best. And Lasix is a diuretic for humans, and it also has a similar effect for horses. And it is not a performance enhancer. Please do not misread me, but it does make it easier for horses to perform at their best. So Lasix is not going to come into play, I don't think, for the West Virginia Derby, because the key contenders there, the core of the race, the 2 Derby winners, in fact, have both won with and without bleeder medications. The Governors could be a different situation, Bill. The horses that bookend that race, Extra and Neho, and Steve Asmussen, tag along, that's going to compete in the Governor Stakes, runs his best by far when he's on the bleeder meds, and regressed last time in a stakes race that did not allow Lasix. So he's going to be permitted the bleeder meds back here at Mountaineer. And he's a brilliantly talented horse with a very high ceiling. And on the far outside, the probable race favorite, the horse that I have installed as the chalk there, so to speak, Hit Show, is a Brad Cox horse. So again, these guys that bring the big dogs for the West Virginia Derby also bring secondary horses, which ain't really secondary horses when it comes to talent or accomplishment, to try for our second biggest jewel on the race card. And Brad Cox has Hit Show in there, a horse that had grade 1 aspirations last year. And Hit Show is clearly a case of a horse who wants the bleeder meds, who will get the bleeder meds, who regressed last time without the bleeder meds, again in a jurisdiction that did not permit Lasix. And so Hitshaw, who's unbeaten on Lasix, is going to get his bleeder meds here on Sunday. And you might look for a big performance from him. But make no mistake, Bill, the horse with the high ceiling, which can only enhance our West Virginia Derby. So I'm going to root for him, and I want him to win it because it could actually elevate us to potential grade 2, higher grade in the future. The burgeoning star of the race card is definitely Dragoon Guard. I think the iconic image that maybe viewers and hopefully they're going to show up and watch the race want to burn into their minds because I'm praying for it, baby.
Maybe we show Dragoon Guard one more time.
That gray, that specially colored gray, and again, Brad Cox told me last night, you want to get a look at this horse in Gander because he's really offbeat and pretty color gray. And I can just see it in my mind, the iconic image of him in front of the field, in front of a bunch of red horses against that blazing sun that's beginning to fall at 8:15 here on West Virginia Derby night.
Well, we have a great shot of Dragoon Guard up on the screen right now. That's from his win at the Indiana Derby. You asked producer extraordinaire Jordan for something. Boom, she puts it right on there.
Baby.
So there is the that gray, beautiful horse, and it should be, hopefully the weather's perfect. Hopefully everything works out. Should be a great weekend. And I just to mention it to people, if you're thinking about going to the race, $10 gets you in, $15 gets you in, plus a glass, a commemorative glass of for the race and the program as well. So it's not something that's going to kill you price wise if you want to go see the West Virginia Derby, and you get a little swag back with your purchase of a ticket if you spend the $15, and then you're all set. And then you hit a big one at the window. Next thing you know, you're walking out of there. You could be $50,000 richer. You never know.
And I want to throw this one out there too, Bill. $10 admission. Let me tell you what's for free. To stop in the simulcast studio. And I do encourage fans to do this, and I don't mind it even a little bit. I love it. I love it in there. Just pop into the studio and say hi between races, before the races. I'm very receptive to that. From the players.
Well, now that we know you're a movie critic and that you have all the lines now, we can stop by and talk movies.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Get you a little break from the racing for about 5 minutes in between races in the simulcast. But looking forward to a big weekend. I know you're excited about a big weekend of racing at Mountaineer. Should be an absolutely sensational weekend. And Dragoon Guard, I'm very interested to see this.
Who's your Derby pick, Bill? I got to know your Derby pick because you proposed I'm gonna go with my man.
I love the gray, like you said, straight. And I'm one of those guys that I don't go against streaks. If a horse is on a streak, there's a reason why the horse is on a streak. And then you look at, we talked about the trainer. He's got Brad Cox, 2 times Eclipse winner. The pedigree appears to be there, and he's been running well. So I'd find it tough to go against him. So that would be my pick.
So in other words, I can't sucker you into some kind of a wager in which you give me the chalk and you take some long shot, right? I can't do this. You're too savvy for that. I managed to do that. I managed to do that.
You got me thinking Henro a little bit though too. That it's just depending on how that race. But it sounds like and you are definitely the experts. It sounds like Baxley needs to be there to help some other horses drag down Dragoon. They have to. Go ahead.
On a prominent podcast, I think year before last or something like that, I did manage to sucker some guy who hosted this nationwide, worldwide podcast and bet me straight up on the West Virginia Derby. And the bet was the loser had to wear clown makeup on his own show for a full week, baby, a full week. So I win it. I mean, he's in my ballpark. I mean, Mountaineers, that's my specialty, baby. So he was such a sad clown that, I gave him a reprieve after one single show and told him, take that stuff off, dude. It just does not become you. And you, Mr. Phillips, are no bozo, sir. So I'm not going to propose that kind of a bet.
I'll tell you what, maybe one of the races down the road, we'll definitely have to come up with something. But I can't thank you enough for stopping by and talking with us about the West Virginia Derby this weekend. I do have to mention this. Jordan, can we take a look at the Whitney Stakes? Because that's going to be on Fox 9 Saturday. Coverage begins at 3 in the afternoon. That's at Fox 9. It's the Whitney Stakes for Fox 9 at 3 o'clock. That's Jim Dandy. That was a heck of a race last week to Jim Dandy.
Oh, great, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good finish. It was a great race, but it's going to be.
It was also a smaller field than we have for our Derby, Bill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A much smaller field.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to it. I know you're looking forward. It's your week of Christmas this week. And again, if you have a bumper sticker out there that says "Let's Talk Derby," if my man Mark pulls up alongside, you be ready because you're gonna put the window down and you're gonna talk some horses.
I got a slow car, man, but I'm trying. Honk
Mark,
twice if you like Dragoon Guard. Honk twice
there you go.
if you see me on the highways of Hancock County and you like Dragoon Guard. Honk twice, baby.
All right, Mark. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the races. Thank you for stopping by and being a part of Off to the Races. We look forward to talking to you again real soon. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, my friend.
You have become a great supporter of Mountaineer, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.